John, what's up, man? Great to see you, and thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You bet.
Hey, look
Hey,
at look how bland my background is, and look
I
how
know you got to
color.
do something about that. I don't know. I think it's personalities. You got maybe you don't want to be cluttered on purpose, and you want to have it organized. I don't mind a little structured chaos here and there. So it might just
Yeah,
be a personality thing. I don't know.
yeah, I'll take that, man. I want to be like water, as Bruce Lee says. Just to be clear,
Exactly.
a blank canvas.
That's right. See, we can paint it however we want. So we'll
Yeah,
we'll, we'll paint it in a positive light. Hey, I do have to ask. One of the first questions I wanted to lead off today is you're the self-proclaimed angry therapist, and I got it. I mean, that's a bit of an oxymoron, right? That you're
yeah,
angry, but
yeah.
also a licensed therapist, and I'm very curious about the spin on that and what your
The
thoughts are
angry
there.
part.
Yeah.
I used to be angry, and after my divorce, when I was 35, had no money, no friends, had nothing, no sense of self. And so I started a blog on Tumblr back in the Tumblr days. And I called it The Angry Therapist. I just thought it was funny that a therapist was angry. I was in therapy school. And later I realized it was my way of saying that I'm human because I started to work in more casual over clinical ways. I started to work in unconventional ways. I would meet my clients at the CrossFit box. I'd take my motorcycle and meet them at the coffee shop. And so I'm not angry anymore, but yeah, I was unhappy. And so that led to a lot of anger. And now I look at it as the angry therapist. It's okay to have feelings as a therapist.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I was curious. You talk about your divorce, and I'm sure you've had ups and downs throughout your life, personal, professional. Did you feel I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll ask it this way. How did you feel about becoming a therapist, but struggling in your personal relationship, for example? It sounded like those times overlapped. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Going to therapy school was my therapy, and it was all. It was the beginning of my hero's journey of finally looking inward. Working on tools and having any kind of self awareness. I was mostly a walking reaction in my 20s and half of my 30s.
Hmm. What is it that you were reacting to?
Any kind of resistance. So uh, I think that one of the things that divides men from boys is men have the ability to respond, and I think boys react. And so for most of my life, I just reacted, and our reactions come from things that activate us, and not having the ability to put that emotional speed bump there and think about how what you say, what you do, your energy is going to affect the other person. So in a way, just going through the world, throwing chairs, steamrolling. That was me.
Yeah, I mean that sounds familiar. I'm very much
Yeah,
the same way in my life, and even now, there's things that I get upset about, and
sure,
things
sure.
that don't go quote unquote my way, or things that I've realized are beyond my control that I really try to wrestle and struggle with and try to control at the expense, frankly, of other people, the people that are closest to me.
Yeah, and I think that people mistake growth for like this permanent thing. And when you get to a certain place or you acquire tools, as they say, or quote unquote do the work, that you don't snap back. And that's not true. Man, as humans, we always snap back, just that snapping, it's less or it's less powerful. So yeah, I struggle with the same these days. I, can be impatient and fast to anger and all that stuff.
When you were going to therapy school and then also dealing with relational and personal issues, did you have any sense or thought of, maybe this isn't the route I'm supposed to be, or imposter syndrome or anything like that? Or were you completely open to the idea that you could learn and grow and develop, and there wasn't that sense of faking it, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I still had an imposter syndrome. I mean,
Mm.
I've written, 5 or 6 books and probably have done north of 10,000 sessions, and I still wonder if I'm making a dent. But yes, it took me 6 years. It took me 6 years to um, pedal the bike, to have some kind of confidence, and to really feel like I'm getting out of my own way and I'm now a catalyst to other people. And those 6 years were, man, they were lonely. A lot of me by myself, journaling, taking in content, writing. I've written, maybe 5,000 plus blog posts,
Wow.
documenting my story, spending, time taking myself out to dinners and on my motorcycle, hugging canyons in Malibu. And then also fitness was a big part of my life. I got into CrossFit like 12 years ago when they were flipping heavy tires in back alleyways, and it felt
Right.
kind of like Fight Club. So, um, but just having smart feet and going to class and sweating, leaving sweat angels on the floor, and really pushing myself probably more harder than I ever have in my life. That was a new experience, and that I was very curious about that. So that was a really good structure for me. So yeah, I mean, it was a long journey of asking myself a lot of hard questions, and probably the beginning of liking me.
Hmm.
I always say that this whole thing of self love, I think, can be a bumper sticker. It's easy to choose to love someone. Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's easy, but there are people that we love by choice, but don't really like. Maybe some family members,
Okay,
um,
sure.
but like has to be earned. You can't fake liking someone, right? And so instead of going through the door of self love, I went in through the door of self like. Do I
Hmm.
like myself, right? And so I kind of building a new relationship with self. Man, that was 6 years.
What didn't you like about yourself? And then I actually want to talk about the 6 years because
Sure.
for myself, not only for the guys who are listening, but for myself, I'm hearing this. I'm like, oh man, this is therapeutic even for me.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that's the beauty of this podcast is I talk with guys like yourself and I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, and because I'm learning. So I feel a little bit selfish because I'm learning the most from this stuff. Uh, so I want to get into your journey because I know a lot of us are asking, okay, well, how do we get on this path to liking ourselves versus loving ourselves? But let's start from the beginning. What didn't you like about yourself before you went on this path?
I stamped myself as a failed screenwriter because I went to film school and I started a career in screenwriting in my early 20s. Got represented, sold one or two things, but I never was able to make it into a career. So I thought I was a failed writer. So I didn't like that about myself, that I failed at something. Um, my penis size, growing up in locker
Are you serious?
rooms,
That
and
was a big
no,
issue for you there?
for sure,
Wow.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, growing up in locker rooms, being exposed to images at like age 12, right? My parents came to this country with very little money, so they were always working, and I was just kind of left to. I was just pop culture is what raised me. So, um, and back in those days in the 80s, you had to know someone to get porn. It wasn't like now, and magazines and stuff. And then so
Yeah.
that
Or
the
steal them from the gas station, which is what we did when we were kids.
right, or like someone's parents, dad's collection.
Yeah. This found the stash, right?
And then that one image that you are able to rip out of the magazine you carry in your back pocket until it's so faded that you doesn't even look like an image. But anyway, yeah. So like from that to locker rooms, and then having kind of a distortion, and comparing yourself to men with baby arms and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Defining my value as a man based on my penis size, right? So
Mm.
didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I was broke, starting all over at 35. I also had never done a squat. So I was the dude with the skinny, I looked like a pigeon, these
Okay.
skinny legs. And then just like, I just would
Big
do,
arms and
yeah,
chest,
yeah,
no
yeah.
legs
Just
though.
chest and
Okay.
right. Um, so yeah, didn't like body, didn't like the fact that I was broke, didn't like the fact that I was a failed writer.
Interesting.
Yeah. Started
Did
there.
you when could you 6 years ago when you were doing that, could you articulate what it was, or has it taken a lot of time to figure out what you didn't like about yourself? Or did you already know, like, this is what I don't like about myself? This is what I, not much we can do about penis size necessarily, but legs, sure, we can
Right.
work on that. Wealth, sure, we can work on that. Did
Yep.
you know that, or did you have to discover that through a process?
No, it was discovery.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sitting well, I mean discovery, but also, honest conversations. What is it? It was looking in the mirror. I mean literally, but also, kind of figuratively looking at oneself, um, inner journey, behavior, patterns, Um, who are you? What do you bring to the table in any relationship? Like these kind of hard questions, right? And really trying to be honest with myself and thought, fuck, I'm lacking and I want to be better. I want to be different. And that was my fuel.
Hmm.
Yeah. Taking
I think,
ownership, you know?
right, right. I think it could have very easily gone the other route in that you could have been destructive with it, maybe,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you
Yeah.
could have said, well, I don't have the wealth, and that's because all the other guys have the money, and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, or they're taking advantage. Like, you could turn those into negative thoughts. So was it going to therapy school that made you have a positive framework or reference for it, or what was it that spun you in the right
Yeah.
direction?
And I got to be honest, because I have addiction in my blood. If I actually had money, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have been,
Hmm.
the douchebag in the Ferrari, and I would have been self-destructive for sure. I am impulsive, and I fall into the extremes category. I could have a lot of addictive behavior. Um, so it's glad it was the universe stripping me of relationships and money was my treatment. It was what was prescribed for me. And if that didn't happen, meaning if I had money and a crazy social life and lots of women and all that, I would have definitely I wouldn't have went on this kind of character arc. I would have went the other way for sure.
Right. So if you had that baby arm, it could have very easily
Yeah.
went the other way, is what you're
I,
saying.
I would be in a gutter in Vegas somewhere, half alive.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
well, also I found, at 49, after being with in a lot of or many relationships, and learning that women actually don't like baby arms has been good information.
You used the phrase it was what was prescribed for me. I can't remember
Yes,
what term you used, whether it
yes,
was, oh, you said the universe, I believe is what you said.
yes. The universe.
Is Do you believe in God or a higher power, or
I
what
do.
does
I
that
believe
look
in.
like?
Yeah, I believe in something greater for sure. I believe in God. I don't have a religion. When I was married, I was Christian, but I think for her, not for me.
Mm,
So there was a falseness to it. We went to church and stuff, but and I tried to be present, and at moments felt connected, but I was doing it more. If I was to be honest, I was doing it more for her, right? To be a quote unquote good husband. So today, I definitely believe in things greater than self. I just don't know what that is, as far as like if it's Jesus or someone specific.
right. Yeah, that's fair. I'm
Yeah.
always very curious. It's interesting. I haven't talked with a whole lot of people who don't believe there's something higher, whether that's the
Hmm.
universe, which is the term you just used, or Mother Earth, or who knows. I mean, there's so many different names for it, but I see it as God personally.
Yep.
And it's always interesting to me that we're taught, even in a lot of ways, atheists that I've talked with believe in something higher than themselves, and we're all talking about the same kind of thing. We're just putting a different label on it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: how has that helped you thinking of or believing in something greater than self? I'm assuming that has been a
Yeah.
game changer. No.
No, it has
Yeah.
absolutely. I'll be frank. Over the last couple of years, I've lost my way spiritually a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm.
And part of that is because of the reaction to COVID and how that affected church attendance. And, not
Yeah.
to make excuses, I certainly could have been more spiritual throughout that time, regardless. But over the past several weeks and months, I've really tried to get back in touch with this. And for me, knowing that I'm not alone is
Hmm.
helpful.
Hmm.
Uh, also knowing that there is some author of this experience
Yeah.
that actually is deeply vested in making sure that we are fulfilled. And I see that through growth, not through just ignorance and bliss, but through growth, which is painful, which I've experienced and I continue to experience. And then knowing that I have a reason for being here, which is to serve people. And it's
Yeah.
not about I'm an ant. Like I believe that I'm divine and that people are, you, me, everybody listening are divine, but also I'm an ant in the grand scheme of things.
Hmm.
And I'm not as important as I tend to believe I am, but I can be a tool or an instrument to help serve other people who might be experiencing hardship.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get our superpower. That's where, for me, I tell people that I was able to turn my bib into a cape by flipping it around, a small cape. But
That's interesting. Yeah.
the bib was, before therapy, and the walking reaction, the child, and then once I started to go on this self betterment journey, being able to turn that bib around by getting out of my own way, by believing in something greater, by being a catalyst, a conduit. I believe in the power of the collision. And then once you do that, suddenly you have 92 octane fuel, man. Suddenly you have passion because it's no longer about you. And I think that's kind of
Mm,
the tipping point. When we make things about us, we can easily default to the victim mode and have that cape, throwing peas at the wall, complaining. But when we're able to get out of that and start to believe it's not about us and that we need to own our own shit and we're here to, like you said, serve and be a catalyst to other people, man, now you're fearless.
right, right. Do you mind if I ask, you talked about, is it 6 years ago that you went through your divorce, or what was the
No, it was
timeline on
longer.
that?
It was like 12, 2010ish. It's like 12 years ago.
So what were the issues that you were experiencing? I bring that up because so many people are struggling with that currently,
Yeah.
separations, looming
Yeah.
divorces. What was it that was going on within the relationship that maybe you've learned now to improve upon?
Yeah, it wasn't people doing anything wrong. It was met her at an early age, and it was when I first met her. It was two kids in L.A. and it was very kind of romantic and enmeshed,
Mm,
and I didn't know that it was very codependent. Um, and then the dynamics changed. I became the husband who was cleaning up dog poop and washing the dishes and down on myself because I couldn't sell a screenplay, and she was thriving. And I think instead of supporting and championing that, I became kind of controlling and jealous, and felt like the kid that got held back. And I went from her mouth to her nipple. I think the dynamic changed where I became more like her son than her partner
interesting.
over time, right? So over the five
Right.
years, and of course that's not attractive, and yeah, we're just two young kids who got married too fast, like many people, with no tools, and but that divorce was the biggest catalyst in my life. That was what was my call to adventure, if you want to play the hero's journey. That was the beginning.
I read something earlier today as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk with you about, and I can't exactly remember what it was, but you said that relationships end when they're supposed to. I think you said I may have
Yeah,
caught
I I used the word expired, and I think
expired.
yeah, some people have a problem with this. I was on Dak Shepard's podcast, and I knew he had a problem with this. We didn't get into it, but I understand that if you use the word expired, you're minimizing the relationship because it's not milk, right? But I choose to see it that way because it's so much easier to let go if you believe that a relationship, a marriage, of course, after you've done as much work as you can to repair it, that maybe it wasn't meant to go any further. And again, this
Mm,
idea that there's something greater happening. Um, because the word breakup or divorce sounds so traumatic and devastating. I just, for me, it was so much easier to accept the fact that something has expired and it wasn't meant to go a day more or a day less. But again, you don't want to use that as an excuse to not do any work. That's not what I'm saying, you know. But I think
Yeah, that
friendships,
would be my concern is that
yeah,
guys would hear that and think, "Oh, well, it's hard, so like I
yeah,
guess it's over."
it's expired. Well, you know, and it's like the fifth time that you've said that.
Or it's gone
No,
sour, which relationships do, right? Because
yeah.
of life or because of one partner's behavior. And so it goes sour if we're going to use that metaphor. Well, that doesn't mean that it can't be unsoured either, or you can't rebuild
Well,
either.
right. I mean, as much as I say that relationships do expire, I also say love starts when it gets hard.
How do you
You
mean?
know, um, when you get erect. No, I'm just kidding. When it gets hard, when things get hard, like you know the whole fairy tale, and this is in our book. It's not me, it's you. The happily ever ending bullshit, like the happily ever after bullshit, or the programming from a lot of you know, Disney cartoons and fairy tales that once you find your quote unquote the one, then it's you know it's two people now that have swam to the island and it's going to be easy and they're going to watch the sunset. No, it's like when you actually choose to love someone and you know move in, that's when things get hard. That's when the movie should start, when you see the dirty socks on the floor and the mismatch in you know love languages and attachment styles and the conflict, and you know that's when shit gets hard, and that's I think when love starts, not when love should end. So although I use the word expired, I also know that this kind of fairy tale image of love that we have is not realistic, and that relationships require a shit ton of work.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, we're all smart enough to know what you're talking about. It's interesting. There are a lot of people on social media mostly, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
dumb people, but I don't know. When we log into social media, it's like we turn into ignorant fools, and then we actually play dumb to try to get gotcha moments. Like, what do you mean expired? I don't know. That's a bad word. And we all know what you mean. We all know what you're talking
Right,
about.
right,
Maybe
right,
I would
right.
choose to use a different word,
Yeah.
but we all get it, even if we pretend like we don't.
Also, it just helped for me. I'm not saying that you should
Right.
use it or that is truth. It's just my truth. It's what's helped me through the years.
So you used a phrase that I cringe at a little bit. You said my truth. I personally
Mm-hmm.
don't like that phrase
Mm,
because it's just not, it doesn't exist. Like there is no subjective truth. There is only objective truth. Now I will say it's my
right.
opinion or it's my perception or it's what I believe, but I don't believe there is a truth that is uniquely mine.
Like you don't own it, like thing. So I see what you're saying. So yeah, it's through my lens.
Right.
Um, Yeah,
So,
there's a lot of words these days that because of the explosion of wellness, and of course, yeah, with social media, everyone has a megaphone, so they're all talking, um, that are overused and that can rub people the wrong way. And so yeah, that's totally fair. I never
I
saw it that
guess,
way.
well, I guess we're probably not in a disagreement then. You understand that it's through your lens is what you said, which is
Yeah,
what I would agree with, that yes, this is the way I see it through my lens.
my lens, my story. Yes.
I just tend to believe, or at least have seen so many people, and I think this is a growing pop culture sentiment, that if I feel it, it must be unequivocally true. If I
Mm,
feel victimized or I feel offended or I feel like somebody has gained at my expense, then
I
that is what
see.
happened. That is the truth. That is the reality. And there's
Right,
no
right.
questioning it.
So you're saying when someone says my truth, it's dried cement, right? There's no room for conversation. So there's also maybe possibly a lot of judgment. And so that's why that doesn't work for you. So my opinion works better for you. What about what is true to me? Is that kind of the same?
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about this conversation, and John, I'm actually really enjoying this conversation.
Yeah,
But it,
I love the challenging of it, you know. That's the
yeah, sure. So,
like you
well,
challenging my truth. I love that. That's great.
I mean, I'm curious. And look, I used to shy away from I'm not asking to contend or anything. I'm just curious. I really want to find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But someone else could be doing this and they could actually not enjoy this experience with you or me.
Right.
And so
Right.
which one is true? Well, neither are true. Like there is no true. I I guess it's true that I'm enjoying it. That is true. And I guess it might
Right.
be true that somebody else is not enjoying it, but it's not
Well,
equally
here's
true
what
for
here's what I
everybody.
agree with. Here's what I agree with, and I think what's happening in the world when you said, um, when people start saying it's my truth, there is something about that, especially when it comes to things like, politics or things that are controversial,
Mm-hmm.
where there's no movement. It's someone holding something with two hands and saying this is truth. You should believe in this, or there's like a giant should, or there's something about my truth that doesn't leave a lot of room for let me see it your way, or let me flip it on its head, or let me be open and let me be curious. So that I agree with. I've never, until today, I've never really looked at it that way. But I definitely have less problem with my truth or this is my truth than you do, but it's because I never looked at it that way. But I could see that for sure.
Do you run into this because you're still practicing your therapy, correct or no?
Yes, I definitely I don't have time to see. I don't have a full practice anymore. I'm doing a
Right.
lot of
Okay.
books and media stuff, but I've got a handful of clients, and yeah, I still see people.
I the reason I ask is I'm wondering if you see a lot of people, men predominantly, because I we work with men
Hmm.
who are so stuck in
Yeah,
their perception, their current reality, that they do refuse. I don't care about the semantics of my truth or my. I don't care about that.
right, right, right.
What I
It's
do
what's
care
underneath.
about, that's the point, right? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
do you see people who are so stuck and stubborn in their ways,
yes,
or what somebody else might be doing to them, that they just refuse to get better? And then how does somebody who might be trapped in that concrete, like you said earlier,
hmm,
begin to break themselves free from it so they can actually move forward, maybe make amends for some things they've done and improve their situation?
yeah. Usually, it takes them losing something that is very valuable to them, like a
Mm,
marriage or custody, or you. And this is why addiction is so hard. You, I feel like a lot of people who are quote unquote set in their ways have to break. You know, because if they don't, then what would force them to change? If they're set in their ways and life is good, what would force them to change? For me, it was a divorce. For someone, it may be something else, but it's that hitting rock bottom, as they say, where they're like, okay, really need to look at. I've looked at everyone else, and now it's time to look at me.
I
And
agree with that.
most people don't get there until they're hitting rock bottom or close to.
So I 100% agree with that. I don't like it. I don't like the
Yeah.
answer
I
because
feel
I don't
like
want to hit rock
it.
bottom. I've hit rock
Right.
bottom. I will, I'm sure in my life, hit rock bottom again.
Yeah.
And there's other people that I deal with every day who are either there or very close. So I don't
Yeah.
like the answer. I agree with it. So what can we do in our lives, whether that's look for some red flags or be aware of some trends or practices that we can implement that will keep us from eventually hitting rock bottom? Because we're all
Right.
smart enough to know
Right.
that something is always going to be looming in the shadows, just waiting to
Hmm.
pounce on you. How do we keep it there and not allow it to attack our lives?
I always bring it back to self, connection to self or disconnection. So I use tattoos as dog ear pages of my stories and reminders. And after my divorce, I got obsessed with this concept of pseudo versus solid. So I got pseudo on one arm, solid on the other. And your solid self is the what they call your authentic self. Your pseudo self is what I was living in, someone that exchanges his truth for membership, right? Especially growing up in LA, chasing
Mm,
shiny things. I had no sense of self. I just wanted approval, validation, attention. And I also paused my life hoping that if I got the, three picture deal and the fast cars and the beautiful women, then I would be happy. But because those things never came, I was miserable. One of my books
right.
is called "I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck," and it's a true
Yeah.
story because I was miserable, and And so I started with, okay, if I pull from my solid self across the board in all areas of my life, what would that look like? Or I would ask myself, am I pseudo? Like in this moment, like just sitting with you, Ryan, am I pseudo? Am I seeking some kind of validation, approval? Am I pulling from a place that is false? Or am I being honest and truthful? So when I said something about my it's my truth, and you're like, you know what, I don't like that. That was your solid self, right? Because if you were
Mm,
pseudo, you would have just let that go, and
sure.
right. But you're like, hey, that's something that I question and I don't like, and so that's your solid self, right? That is the potent version of you. So after my divorce, I started to pull for my solid self. And a lot of people don't like that side of you because they're not used to it. That's the side that's going to speak up, that's going to,
Challenge them.
challenge them. A lot of times we're in lopsided friendships where our pseudo side is what holds that friendship together. Right.
Right.
If at the family dinner table, we don't want to rock the boat, or if mom has a problem with dad, they come to us and we become the kickstand, I say, or the emotional punching bag. So being solid means to maybe send someone a voicemail, or maybe tell someone, hey, you know what? I'm always early and you're not. Can you be there on time this time? Or let's not meet, or, whatever it is, right? Or it could be like
Right.
someone saying, hey, this is how I want to be touched, or whatever. That's a practice. And I think that is hard to do. So I started there. So when you asked
Hmm.
me, how can we prevent us hitting rock bottom, going back to your relationship with yourself, the question is, what areas of your life are you pulling from your pseudo self? Maybe at work because your boss has an iron fist, or maybe in your relationship, or are you doing life around people or at people instead of with people? How can you pull more from your solid self? Maybe in your podcast, right? If you create content, are you being an authentic, honest person, or are you doing things for likes, views, listens, all of that? So listen, we're all human. I was more pseudo than solid, and I know that I was at a lower frequency because of that. And then after my divorce, because I had nothing to lose, I started to pull from my solid self. And when you do that for a long time, that's the road to start liking you. That's where you're like, oh, I accept that I'm a grower, or I accept that I got a perm, or I accept, and I like that about myself, and I'm okay with it. You sit with yourself and you're, hey, these are my opinions. This is who I am. And if you don't like it, it's okay. It probably has more to do with your story than mine. Um, but yeah, it took I mean, I'm still on that journey, right? So,
Right. I
yeah.
think a lot of us are. And obviously, I'm sure you're well aware of the concept of the nice guy, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I think you're touching on that a little bit. A lot of
Yeah, the
people
the
will,
approval seeker,
that's
yeah,
right.
the guy that gives you the dead fish handshake, that doesn't look you in the
Right.
eye. Huge pet peeve of mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that has no
Or,
opinion. Where do you want to go for lunch? Oh, wherever you want to go for lunch. No, no. What do you feel like? Whatever you feel like.
yeah,
Yeah, it's hot.
you don't like to be around those kind of people, but it is very easy, I think. And I've been there for a lot of men to fall
Sure,
into that trap. I
sure.
mean, again, to go back to what I said earlier when I was questioning some of the terminology we're using, 5 years ago, I may have said, oh, cool, and just kind of let it blown over because I didn't want to ruffle those feathers. And I'll tell you, actually sharing it in a respectful way, you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Right,
But,
right. You should definitely pull
but
from kindness.
I'm just wondering how often you see guys who are these pseudo self kind of people
Hmm.
who want to be solid self, how often they go to the other end of the extreme and turn into jerks or become arrogant or
Right,
selfish, and that
right.
becomes a problem.
Yeah, proving something, posturing, right, that kind of stuff.
Right, correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that something that you see or deal with or have seen men step into?
People, men who go from, oh, you mean men thinking that they're in their solid self but they're actually pseudo, that kind of thing?
Thinking that they want to be solid, like they want even that terminology, like they want to be the fixture, they want to be tough, they
Right,
want to
right.
be, but yet taking it so far that they're actually alienating other people or
Mm,
dominating other people,
right.
or or saying, if they don't care what I think, I don't give an F about any of that kind of stuff. And it just
Right. I
becomes
see what you're
so
saying. Yeah.
extreme that it's harmful to
Yeah.
them as well.
Yeah, that that reminds me of the My Truth thing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
If they don't
right.
like it, that's their problem, not
Yeah.
mine. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, your solid self requires an inward journey. It requires vulnerability. It requires a transparency. And so, if someone is saying, pulling from judgment or saying it's my way and I'm right, you're wrong, to me that's a shield. To me, that's the opposite, right? To me, that's in a way a hiding, not truly showing yourself or being open. It's just being narrow.
Got it.
Yeah.
One of the things I've started to do over the past 2.5 weeks is I've done a lot more reflection over the past several weeks.
Mm.
And I've carved out time daily to do that. I was looking at my watch. It tracks my steps like most gadgets do these days.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at my step count. It's through the roof, and that's because I'll go walk and I'll just think and contemplate and
Mm.
go through my thoughts. And then the other thing I've started to do is I write a lot more. I write in my journal. I
Nice.
write down those thoughts. I've been taking a lot more notes. I mean, you can see I'm taking notes here. I'm trying to process everything that's coming into me, good, bad, and different.
Yeah.
And even writing letters that may or may not get sent, letters to people
Oh,
that
I
I
like
love,
that.
letters
Yeah.
even to myself.
That's like that's straight up therapy exercises. Your therapist probably I mean a lot of
Well, it's
therapists recommend that those kind of exercises. That's great.
one person did recommend to me to write a life story about what my past was, what my and the
Hmm.
challenges and why I am
Hmm.
the way I am based on my past, good and bad. um where I am today and what I like and don't like about myself, and then into the
Mm.
future, what kind of person would I like to be, and what
Right.
does that look like? Those exercises have been amazing,
Yeah,
amazing, very
absolutely.
cathartic for me.
Also, there's something about writing. What do you get out of? Because a lot of people would say, "Well, why are you writing it? Why don't you just think about it?" But what is the value for you in actually writing this stuff down?
Well, I think what happens to me is I get into this circular logic
Yes.
where I might think something and then I'll try to rationalize it or justify it or excuse it away. And then I do it. And then maybe I feel guilty about not following through on something. And then I have more that I need to deal with, but then I rationalize that like I'm busy,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like this
Mm-hmm.
circular logic in my head. And writing for me is more linear, so I actually have to take it through to resolution.
Mm.
Here's what I'm dealing with. Here's my part to play in what's going on, and then here's what I'm going to do in order to resolve this. And if I do, here's how I'm going to feel about it. And so for
Yeah. So
me,
I
it's
hear you
very
saying that it
linear.
it sorts it out for you,
It does.
all the crazy thoughts and distorted thinking. Yeah, that's exactly. It creates distance, and by creating distance, it creates clarity. That's what writing does
Mm,
for me. And I didn't know this at the time, but when I started a blog on Tumblr, I just did it because I had a lot of time on my hands and I had a broken heart and no friends. Like, what else am I going to do? But I realized that was my treatment. Every day writing journal. I just hit post after my writing, but I was doing a lot of what you were doing, walking the streets of Cape Town, listening to like Wayne Dyer with
yeah.
styrofoam coffee, and doing a lot of reflecting and a shit ton of blogging, journaling, and then just I would hit post, but I also thought no one would read it. But then people started reading it, and then that was that was my trajectory. Started from
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
One other thing that writing has done for me, as you were saying that, is I'll write something that in my head I think, well, that sounds good. Here's my behavior, but here's why I did it, or here's what I'm thinking about it. And like that sounds pretty good in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then I write it down and it's like, you're an idiot. I don't know
Well,
what it is
right.
about taking it from your mind and putting it onto paper, but maybe it makes it more true or makes it more objective, where you
Yeah, I
read it
mean,
and you're like, whoa, that's what I think? That sounds stupid.
right. I think, but I could also go the other way, where you have something in your head and you might think it's a dumb idea, then you write it down. You're like, oh, there's actually something there.
I don't know if I've ever I don't know if I've ever experienced that. Usually I have ideas. I'm
It's
like,
the other
that's
way.
dumb. And then I write it down, or I think it's a great idea. And then I write it
Yeah.
down or try to put pen to paper. And I'm like, no, that's actually not a good idea. I
Mm.
don't know if I've ever experienced the other way around.
Well, I mean, that process is good too because it acts as a safety net, or it acts as a checks and balances, so you don't spend a lot of wasted energy trying to execute something that you have in your head.
Well, the problem is I usually don't do that. And if I have an idea, I'm like, just go,
Oh, me
just
too.
figure it out
Me
along
too.
the way.
Yeah. Hey, no, no, but I gotta say, there's value in that. So I actually do that. I build the bus while I'm driving it, and I used to think that was a defect of mine. I used to think like, you don't think things out. You get all excited about some stupid idea, and then you just try to execute. And now I'm realizing, especially today, where there's no wall and you could kind of create whatever you want. Now that I realize it's a superpower. Most people have a lot of ideas and they do nothing. And so
True.
just
That's the
the
greater
ex
risk to me.
oh, yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what more people deal with.
at least if you're executing, you're trying to conceive, you're trying to give birth to your ideas, and there's tremendous value in that. Whether that idea is successful or not, or, that's a whole different thing, but and then, who's to say what success means?
What does it mean to you when you think
It's
about being
changing.
successful?
Yeah, in my 20s, success meant the predictable. So being a gearhead, fast cars and lots of money and, fancy houses. Today, success to me is freedom. So freedom in building a life that's honest to you, working in a way that's honest to you, um, and also helping as many people as you can, like you said, being of service, but doing it in a way that is authentic and in your solid self, right? So, um, not tap dancing, not living outside in, but inside out. Um, so doing it in a way that is uniquely you, to me, that is successful. Man, when I see people out there just really themselves, and truly themselves, and also helping, millions, it's such a beautiful thing, and I feel like, wow, that like it's rare and beautiful, and I feel like that person is successful.
Yeah, I think I know I certainly have in the past tended to look at those individuals as some sort of mysterious X factor where I look at a guy like
Mm,
yourself, I'm like, man, that guy's got something figured out. There's something special about him. I don't know what it is. And now I tend to believe I that it's not mysterious. It's that what you just said, they know what success is. They're stepping
mm.
into that success for themselves and they're living truly to who they are. And they've found something that is more important than themselves. And that exudes as confidence, I think, which is what we see and
Yeah,
determine as the X factor.
it's confidence, it's a fearlessness, it's uh purpose driven. Yeah, it's this idea of kind of getting out of your own way. um there's things happening that we can't see, there's things happening that are greater than ourselves. Yeah, all of that. And I think that's what we're meant to do. A lot of us, most of us, just don't get there because of our own false beliefs and distorted thinking and all that, and being in victim mode and all that.
Are there some common you said false beliefs? Are there some
Yeah.
common false beliefs that you see that people step
Oh
into that we
yeah.
should be aware of
Yeah.
that are common, right? That a lot of people fall into.
Yes. I'm not good enough. I'm not
Mm,
lovable. um the stuff we started this podcast with, the kind of half joking, but the whole baby arm penis size. If you
right.
tie that to your worth, you're going to feel that you are lacking, right? um I'm not smart enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not, all of that the whole I'm not enough is huge, and that ripples into relationships, because um if we feel that we're not enough, then we may overextend or try to compensate to be enough. Or if we feel that we're not lovable, we may sabotage relationships, we may hide, run, whatever. It's all unique to every individual in their story.
What is a healthy way to look at that? Because I'll take I'm not good enough, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and
Mm-hmm.
that actually might be true if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do something. So maybe it's to start a successful podcast or another type of business or become a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
It actually might be true that you are not good enough. So what is
Right.
is there a
Like you don't have the
healthy
capability.
way,
Yeah.
right? Like, is there a
Yeah.
healthy way to look at that and not tie it to your self-worth, but at the same time use it as fuel to actually try to become good enough at something that's important to you?
Yeah. So what's interesting about false beliefs, they're buried in our subconscious and we pull from them usually without even knowing it. So if you believe that you are not, let's say you believe you're not lovable, um, you're gonna, it's gonna manifest without you even being aware of it until you make that conscious, and then you are aware that, oh, this is why I'm sabotaging, or I'm, not being intimate, or whatever it is that you're doing. One of my false beliefs was, so in high school I played football, but I didn't play. I was the
Mm,
bench warmer, the kid with the whitest
sure.
uniform, and I skated and I breakdanced in the '80s, so I knew I was athletic, but because I was a bench warmer for 4 years, the false belief that was ingrained in me was I'm not an athlete. And it's
Ah,
helpful if you take whatever that is kind of like a murky false belief and boil it down to one sentence, right? So I'm not an athlete. That's where I'm pulling from. So when I found CrossFit many years later, and I would go up against athletes because it attracted a lot of athletes, I would stutter. I would be afraid. And it wasn't until I gave myself a new experience, because there's nothing more convincing than an experience where I actually tied or beat an athlete, then I wondered, oh, what else could I do? And then my performance shot up, although nothing changed physically. So it was like a mental block, right? So if you believe that you are unlovable, I think you have to set yourself up for an experience where you drop into your body and you feel loved without condition. Now, you don't have to do that with a romantic. You could do that with a friend. You could do that with, any human. But as you give yourself those new experiences, you start to dissolve that false belief and believe something different. So one of
but
the
is
false
the
beliefs.
trap
Oh,
let
sorry.
me interject just real
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
because is the trap of that, so let's say loving unconditionally, being loved unconditionally because you
Mm-hmm.
don't think you're able to be loved,
Level,
but
yeah.
won't you fall into the trap of seeking other people's approval and love and doing things purely to test if you are lovable? Or same thing with athletics is, now you're chasing around all these things and you're placing your sense of worth on, no, actually I am athletic because I
You
beat
know,
this guy over here.
right. I think it's important to untie worth from ability. I know it's really hard to do in our society. But I know for me, so once I start to dissolve um, me not being an athlete, that belief, one of the things I did, I start to reframe what it means to be an athlete, and maybe it's not about the scoreboard. Maybe being an athlete just means you don't, shave reps, or you do it, or you go as hard as you can, and that's enough for you. So you start to wrestle with different definitions.
Mm.
And so as far as you being lovable, what does that look like? What is your definition of being lovable? And then you start to wrestle with it until you come up with a healthier definition, because maybe what you thought being lovable meant someone um, just giving you a lot of things, or maybe it means being intimate only, or whatever, right? And so I would challenge my definition. um, I would challenge my definitions on any kind of false belief, what that means, what success means, what
I, I've never really I've never really done that before. I'm and I just wrote this down here. What is lovable for myself? Just speaking for myself, like what
hmm
what what do I believe makes me lovable? And I wrote here that I'm capable, which I think is good. I want to be capable. I want to serve other
yeah,
people.
yeah,
But what if I come across something that I'm incapable in the current moment of doing? That means I'm not lovable.
right.
So
It's
that could be a false
the
belief.
Well, capable is it's interesting because it's a kind of a dangerous word, because, well, it's vague. What does that mean? When you
Right.
say that I'm capable, what are you capable of? You're capable of what? Loving someone else, but what else? What do you define as capable?
I guess I would say, without thinking about it too much, capable of giving or assisting somebody with what they may need in the moment. So if it's my
Sure.
wife, then it might be financial provision.
Right.
If it's my children, it might be my time and attention. If it's this podcast, it might be securing great guests like yourself and others that actually have something valuable to share with other people it's for me, capability is defined as giving people something they need that will serve them.
Right. So it is also, it feels like an ability,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Um, my definition of lovable is someone loving you, whether you are, whether you have that ability or not. Someone loving Ryan because you are Ryan, not because you can give them something or help them with their life or reach an audience. Um,
It's
that, that
hard for
that
me
would
to
be
wrap
my
my head around because I'm trying to be like really frank here because it's good for
yeah
you, it's good for me, it's good for
yeah
the
of
guys
course.
listening. That's a
We're
hard
both
one for me to
we're both
wrap.
trying to be solid.
I'm trying, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't want
yeah.
to posture.
I appreciate
Uh,
it.
it's so hard because I think in my head, and again, I'm going back to these beliefs, and so I need to really flesh this out. Maybe I need to write on this particular thing, but
Hmm.
if I don't, why would anybody love somebody that doesn't have anything to offer? you,
Yeah, that's
and
so that question I think many people ask themselves, including myself. And I think you have more to offer than your capabilities. Uh,
mm,
who you are, who you've become. So this is the self talk that I was engaged in with myself when I had nothing because I thought, fuck, what am I going to offer? I don't have money. I don't have a lot. What can I offer?
right.
I was just I didn't have anything, and so um, once you start to establish a relationship with yourself where you actually start to like yourself, not in an arrogant way, but in a kind of a connection way, because there are parts of when we were younger that we did really like ourselves, um, and it may be just little chapters here and there, but having that connection back to self and your spirit, what can you offer? Then I started thinking, well, I've sat down with people and have really helped them through conversation or through humor or through just being there, and I could offer that. I could offer other things. I could offer my story because I've been somewhere and came back. I could offer, opinion. I could offer. So there's other things that I could offer that wasn't like, here, I could give you, some kind of service or money or security or, those things. And so I just started to stretch definitions like that. And that would be my challenge to you is if you default to, well, what value do I have if I can't offer someone anything? I would say, well, who are you and what can you offer that isn't tied to an ability, a capability?
Yeah, and I've
Would
thought
you allow
about that.
someone to love you? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have thought about that. And one of the things that I actually feel like I can offer to other people, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's, my wife or my children, friends, colleagues, coworkers, whatever, is two things predominantly stick out to me. Number one is dedication.
Mm,
I am extremely, extremely dedicated to whatever I focus my attention on. And that
right.
thing it's like written in stone. It just hasn't happened yet. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is loyalty.
Mm,
I believe that I'm one of the most loyal people out there. That it would take an act of God, and I'm not trying to be blasphemous or tempt God at all by any means, but an act of God to break my loyalty to somebody else or something I've committed to. And I
yeah.
can
So
offer that outside of abilities that I have.
right. That's great. Those are great examples. So, and I believe that because you're saying it with such certainty. Uh, those are qualities of Ryan. That's in your makeup. It's in your, it's also probably part of your value system. What's important to you. So yeah, those are definitely things that you can offer. And so anyone listening, I would actually, I love what you're doing. You're writing this down. I would write down things that you can offer that isn't necessarily attached to an ability or a
Mm.
performance or or because someone or you have money or whatever it is, but what can you offer that is already baked into you because it's who you are, it's related to your spirit and your soul, um, and there's only one of you, right? So that offering is valuable.
Yeah, there's only one of me in the way that each of us can do it, right? Other people
Right,
can be loyal, other people can
right,
be dedicated, sure, but there's
right,
only
right.
one way to for me to do it or one way for you or anybody else to do it. That's a really valuable exercise. I don't know that I've ever done that because I have wrapped up sense of worth and pride in providing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I say providing, I'm talking about mostly financial, mostly
Mm.
temporal provision.
Right. I think a lot of men do.
Well, it's
A
easier
lot of men, yeah, it's easier. Well,
because
it's
it's
performance
tangible.
based. Yeah. It's
Well,
tangible.
I can see it, right? I
Yeah.
can see it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I got a hundred
Right.
thousand in my bank account, and
Right.
tomorrow now I have 120,000 in my bank account, so I'm better,
I'm providing value.
right?
Right.
Because I have
Right.
$20,000 more in my account than I did
Yeah.
yesterday. I'm better
Yeah.
today.
So I think that's dangerous because what if that 120 goes to 15,000 or minus 10? Then what? You're not. Then your value has gone down. Then you're less of a person or less valuable, or should you be loved less because of that?
Yeah, I'm not saying yes. I'm answering
Yeah.
yes. I'm
Yeah.
saying yeah.
Yeah.
That's an
Right.
interesting thought. Like
Yeah.
that's a really
Yeah.
interesting thought. I guess
That.
I would say that if it did go down, then I would be resolved to say, okay, well, I need to get back up to 120 or 200 now, and that would set me on the path to taking action. But then I'm just chasing things around, right?
Yeah, and I think that
Hmm.
tying your value and your worth to something external like your bank account or a fancy car or anything that fluctuates is dangerous because then some days you're going to like yourself or love yourself more, like yourself more, believe that you have more value, and then other days you're going to feel like you don't. I don't think that's true. I think that you as a person, as a being, your value is consistent and always going up based on your wisdom and your how long you are in your soul self. The byproduct of that is the ripple of that is making money or the other things that you can
Sure.
provide. But I don't think that's who makes you you. I don't think that's the like when you were saying that you're loyal and the other, I forgot the other quality,
Dedicated.
dedicated and loyal. Those are very admirable, valuable qualities. So that I can see, but not the 120K you have in your bank. I mean, that's great. That's a great ability, but um, that's not what I would place your value on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. I think
Yeah.
this exercise is really important, and I would actually, just to reiterate, challenge the guys to do this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you define your sense of worth?
Hmm.
This actually ties into Viktor Frankl's Man's
Oh
Search for
yeah.
Meaning,
Search for meaning. Yeah. Yeah.
where everything was taken, literally everything except for his life was taken from him,
Right.
and yet he found a way to have meaning and purpose in what was the most horrific imaginable
Sure.
scenario.
Well, and then if you think about Viktor Frankl, or if you knew him, loved him, whatever, what did he bring to the table? Because he didn't bring money to the table. He didn't
Right.
bring what
Right.
was his
How could
value?
he?
But he's of tremendous value because look at his impact. Um,
Mm-hmm.
his words, his ability to find meaning in what concentration camps and just basically people being tortured. Right? He was tortured, and yet he still found meaning and was able to find joy. That being having that capacity to me is what's valuable. He just put it on paper and then it spread that message. Because what else did he have to give? It was his story and his opinions and his lenses and his way to reframe.
Very interesting stuff, man. I'm looking at the clock. We're already at an hour.
Yeah, went by
It went
fast.
so fast because we're having a really good conversation. We didn't really talk about your book. And
Zero.
I was like, wait, I
It's all
want to
right.
talk about the book too. I've got so many different things to talk
Yeah, yeah, but
about.
you know what? If you felt forced to talk about the book again, and I understand, there's of course that would help book sales and stuff for me, but
Yeah, and I want to be of service to you, of course.
yeah, but then I also wonder if you would be more pseudo. You know what I'm saying? And I
Mm.
also wonder if time would go slower because you know that this
Yeah,
is,
man, I might, sure.
right.
Like, I don't
And
want to talk
so,
about that, but I feel
right, right.
obliged to do it.
Right. And so I think that this episode would be more potent if we were both solid, and if that included the book, fine. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I mean, we are um creating a conversation that is real and meaningful and authentic to each other. and it starts there, right? So if that's not the soil, we could talk about the book for days, but it might just sound like a big commercial.
Yeah, and frankly, I've done some of those that did
No,
sound
I'm
like a
sure, of course, yeah.
commercial
I have
and
a
not
podcast as
just
well, yeah.
you know
Yeah,
exactly how it
yeah,
goes.
yeah, of course.
And to be able to have a connected conversation like this is just, it doesn't happen all the time. So it's really
Yeah,
cool to be able to have this type of connection on the conversation. But even still, why don't you tell me about the book? Let
yeah,
the guys know where they can go.
sure,
Because a lot of the
sure.
things that we talked about, men are going to want to know more about. And you've been a
Right.
great resource in my life. So I would love for these guys to know where to go.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. The book is called "It's Not Me, It's You," and it's a relationship book. I'm also my partner's a therapist, so I decided if I'm going to write a relationship book, let me write it with someone who could check me on my shit. That would be
Mm,
interesting. So we pull the curtain back and we talk about our struggles. We have a 2-year-old, how hard it is to build a relationship, and so we talk about that, and then of course a lot of client stories. So it's a hybrid of a memoir and self-help, and comes out in a couple weeks. So super excited.
awesome.
Yeah.
How is it? How is it being now? You guys aren't married, right? You said partner, so you're not married.
Yeah, we're not married. Everyone assumes we're married, which is hilarious because we're all kind of programmed for, oh, you guys are together, you're living together, you have a child, you're married, right? And we're like, no,
Yeah.
maybe
How
one day, but
how
not now.
how is it? And yeah, that's fine, whatever. That, but
Yeah,
how is it being with somebody who's a therapist? You guys are both therapists. Are you guys always
yeah,
like what is that? What is that
yeah,
dynamic like? And is it frustrating at times? You're like, I don't want you to analyze or break down my emotions tonight. Like I just want to
yeah.
watch a movie.
It was easier to be with someone who didn't have the clinical background because then you kind of have the upper hand. You could
Mm.
say,
So you would use it. You would use it against. Would you say against somebody else?
Sure, sure. I don't. I mean, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would like sit down and craft a plan, but
Sure.
yeah, you could get into an argument where you can defend yourself because you have a clinical background, and this is what
Mm.
I've learned. I have emotional intelligence training, that kind of stuff. Um,
Right.
and the person who isn't a therapist, like, what could they say to that? Now that I'm with a therapist, she could say, "Oh, that's bullshit." I also
Yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah.
clinical.
She can hold her own for
She can hold
sure.
her own, right? Which is actually good
Of
because
course, you want
we're
that.
meant. We're meant to challenge each other. That's how we sharpen, right? So in our relationship, it's good. It's good that two people are challenging each other, coming from kindness. But yeah, I mean, no one should be the dominant or you know the one that says this is how it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That would be very unhealthy. Well,
Well,
good
you're
brother.
also
Well,
not
tell
getting
us.
anything out of it anyway.
Yeah, you're not improving because there's nothing to push
Yeah.
on you.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, how do we connect with you and learn more about what you're doing? Let the guys know.
Yeah, at the Angry Therapist on social, and my big thing now I'm obsessed about is using SMS texting as a way to program. So like shooting daily text and links and stuff. Me being in your back pocket, so I'm doing a lot of that, and then doing what you're doing. I have my own podcast and creating conversations and trying to um, live on a higher frequency. It's hard.
It is hard. It is hard,
Yeah,
but worth it
yeah.
and
Worth
fulfilling
it.
as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you for everything that you do, and these honest conversations, man, they're just time capsules, and I think so many people are going to get stuff out of your whole catalog. So thank you for everything.
Right on. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
All right, man. Be well.